notes and make sure that you're going step by step. That is always a good idea. And remember, your notes will be checked each day in class. So let's start with the unlock the problem, real world. A tiger can eat as much as 40 pounds of food at a time, but it may go for several days without eating anything. Suppose a Siberian tiger in the wild eats an average of 18 pounds of food per day. How much food will the tiger eat in 28 days if he eats that amount each day? So as a math detective, when we see that word each here, what we're really thinking about is multiplication. So it's really important that when we think about the word each, and whenever we're reading in word problems, we know that that's prompting us to multiply. Also in this problem, boys and girls, I'm going to write out that it can eat 40 pounds of food at a time. But most importantly in this problem, I'm going to underline that it eats an average of 18 pounds per day. Because we want to know if it maintains that average amount, how much might that tiger eat after 28 days. So what we're going to do is we're going to use place value and regrouping. Step 1, just like in the previous lesson, we are going to estimate. So it says estimate, 28 times 18. So we're going to round 28 to 30 and 18 to 20, just because it's easier to do these two because there's a basic fact hidden inside of 30 times 20. Because 30 times 20 is really 3 times 2 times the second power of 10. So 3 times 2 is 6. The second power of 10 is 100. And our final answer is going to be 600. So our estimate is done first because when we get back to our final answer, we want to make sure that it's very close to our estimate of about 600 pounds of food. So now step 2, we're going to multiply the ones. 28 times 8 ones. Well, what we would get for that would be so we know that 8 times 8 is 64, and then 2 times 8 is 16, plus the regroup 6 is 22. So we know that 28 boys and girls, 8 ones times 28 is 224 ones. Next, we're going to go on to step 2. In step 2, we've already multiplied out the ones. And we've also added the regroup 6. So what we do is we check to see what is next. So we see that we have a 1 in the tens place, and that's what we're going to multiply out. But remember, it's not 1, it's really 10. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply 28 by 1, 10, and we get 28 tens, or 280 ones. And remember, boys and girls, 110 is the same as 28 times 10 ones, which is how they got 280 there. So we are going to write 280 here, and we're going to move on to the next step. Step 4 says add the partial products. So here, students, we're going to add our partial products. There's 2 products because there's 2 place values in 18, so that means that we have 2 place values here. Because first we multiplied by 8, and then we multiplied by 10 ones, or 110. So 4 plus 0 is 4. 2 plus 8 is 10. We regroup the 1 in the hundreds place. 2 plus 2 is 4, plus our regroup 1 is 5. So on average, a Siberian tiger may eat 504 pounds of food in 28 days. And now if we go back, boys and girls, we know that our estimate was about 600 pounds. Now our estimate was a little bit high because we rounded up. However, 600 is pretty close to 504, so I know my answer is reasonable. There's a little post-it here which wants us to stop and think before we go on to the next problem. It says, remember, use patterns of zeros to find out the product of multiples of 10. So if we pull out the basic fact, 3 times 4 is equal to 12. We know that 3 times 40 would equal to 120. 30 times 40 would equal to 1,200. And notice, boys and girls, there's 2 zeros in each of the factor. There's 2 zeros in our product. Again, 3 times 400. There's 2 zeros in the factor, no zeros in the 3. We see that there's 2 in the product. And then lastly, students, we see that there's 2 zeros in one of the factors. There's 1 zero in the other factor, so that means that the final product has to have 3 zeros, and we see that there in fact are 3 there. So these are just good patterns, and remember, students, this is the reason why in the last section we might have rewritten before the mid-chapter checkpoint quiz this to be 3 times 2 times the first power, because we know the first power of 10 is 10, and 10 times 12 would give us 120. So there's just another connection to make between this lesson 1.7 and the previous lessons that we've completed so far this chapter. Next, students, we're going to do one more example together. It says the Siberian tiger was observed sleeping 1,287 minutes during the course of one day. If he slept for that long every day, how many minutes would he sleep in 1 year? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle 1 year because I don't remember how many days are in 1 year. However, that's really important to me. And the reason why that's really important, students, is because if we know what he sleeps in 1 day, we can figure out how many he sleeps in all of the days. So I'm going to erase this. This should have said 1 year, students, so I apologize for that. It's kind of funny that the year's in his mouth. So what we're going to do is step 1, we're going to estimate. So we're going to estimate 1,287 to being 1,000, so that's a low estimate. And then we're going to estimate 365. So you might say, well, where did they get 365, Miss G? Boys and girls, this is a unit conversion. If we wanted to know what 1 year was equivalent to in days, it is 365 days exactly. So we see that they rounded that up to 400. So we know our answer, we see that there's 3 zeros here, 2 zeros there. That means our product needs to have, that's right, 5 zeros. So we're thinking that about on average, if we were to estimate this, that tiger would sleep 400,000 minutes in 1 year. So now we're going to go and do our actual multiplication. Step 1, multiply the ones. So 7 times 5 is 35. And I'm going to regroup the 3. 8 times 5 is 40. Plus the regroup 3 is 43. And then we have 2 times 5 is 10. Plus the regroup 4 is 14. And then we're going to regroup the 1 on the thousands place. And 1 times 5 is 5. Plus regroup 1 is 6. So we get that 1,287 times 5 ones gives us 6,435 ones. Next, student, this is the biggest thing that most kids have a challenge with, so make sure you're paying close attention here, and if you need to pause and rewind this twice, you can. So as you see here, we've already multiplied out the ones, so now we're going to multiply the tens. So 6 tens is really 60 ones. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply that next out. So 60 times 7 would be 400 20. So we have to regroup the 4 now above the tens place. 60 times 8, pardon me students, 6 times 8 is 48, plus the regroup 4 is 52. So I write the 2 down, and then I regroup the 5 over the hundreds place. 3 times 2 is 6, plus the regroup 5 is 11. So I write down the 1, and I regroup the last one above the thousands place. And 6 times 1 is 6, plus the regroup 1 is 7. Sorry about that, students, the page jump there. So the reason why we have, so again, 1,287 times 6 tens would give us 7,722 tens. But remember, we got our final answer of 77,221s. And the reason that we got that is what we did was we multiplied by 60, not by 6, because we're not doing 6 tens here. We're doing it by 61s here. Next, we're going to go on to step 4 and multiply out the hundreds. So next, we're going to multiply out the final column, so that's the hundreds place. So 300 times 7 would give us 2,100, and we're going to regroup the 2, and then we're going to do 8 times 3 is 24, plus the regrouped 2 is 26. I'm going to write the 6 down, and then we're going to regroup the other 2. And then 3 times 2 is 6, plus the regroup 2 would be 8. And then lastly, we do 1 times 3 is 3. So 1,287 times 300s would give you 3,861, or 386,101s. And remember, the reason why they got that is because they multiplied by 300 ones rather than just 300s. Now the last step is we add the partial products. So 5 plus 0 is 5, 3 plus 2 is 5, 4 plus 2 is 7, 6 plus 7 plus 6 is 19, regroup the 1, and then 3 plus 1 is 4. Oh, sorry.